For context, we're both in our later 30s and live in a pretty typical suburban neighborhood where we all know each other. My wife has always loved trashy movies and shows about infidelities, and she eats up true crime about spouses killing their cheating partners too. She just says something about it makes her morbidly fascinated, in her words. Well, a couple months back we had a scandal in our neighborhood where a married couple in the neighborhood divorced because the husband cheated. No, there wasn't a murder or anything like that, but she became obsessed with learning every detail from every neighbor. No matter the occasion, be it a baby shower or cookout, she would bring it up hoping there would be any new information. A month later is when I stumbled on the board in her home office. I was doing some cleaning and I found a massive bulletin board facing away leaned up against the wall. Curiosity got the better of me and I turned it around to find a literal fucking conspiracy board of all our neighbors' pictures with lines of yarn connecting each other like the fucking Pepe Sylvia meme. I was totally confused and asked what this was, and she told me it was a hobby she had started recently where she would track rumors or likely candidates for cheating on the board. The yarn represented who was possibly cheating with whom. She had clearly gotten all the images on Facebook or some social media and printed them out and even had a few sticky notes with details. I told her this was creepy and insane, and she said maybe if I was doing it as a man, but she is just having harmless fun as a hobby and she wouldn't be crazy and try to oust anyone based on rumors. She just likes feeling like a detective. She told me to view it like a creative art piece. I was still super weirded out but let it go, or tried. I thought about it, a lot. Well, every now and then I admit to checking the board when cleaning, but just a couple days ago I looked to see that now I was on the board with a yarn attached to a neighbor's wife I'm casual friends with. I asked her why she would add me if she thought I was cheating, and she said that was a different yarn color for potential matches for cheating. She said if it makes me feel better she was planning on adding herself to the board soon. Well, I got pissed and kind of lost my temper about it. I told her to get rid of the board or our marriage will be in trouble. Things have been super rocky since. Sorry for the long post, I am starting to feel bad and it hit me more than usual this morning. Update 1. Anyway. Jesus Christ. Firstly, appreciate all of the concern and NTAs. It gave me the courage to approach her and tell her that while I may have overreacted by threatening our marriage, I think it is a creepy thing to do. She apologized and said she would get rid of the board. I thought we were good. Literally 2 days later. 2 days later. /T hits the fan. Our happily married next door neighbor finds a woman's bra under the bed that does not belong to her. It doesn't take long for the whole neighborhood to find out. Well, my wife is giddy, like jumping up and down for joy. She shows me the board, which she still didn't trash like she promised, and of course the husband was marked with yarn, meaning he was likely to cheat. She told me the board was accurate after all and maybe she should keep her hobby around. I was definitely suspicious, so I looked at the board again later. It looked different from the last time I saw it before the latest scandal. Instead of the yarn connecting to another neighbor, the cheating husband's yarn connected to a post-it with a question mark. Firstly, it was the only question mark there and I swore it wasn't there last time I saw the board. So either she changed it after the cheating to prove a point, or slightly before it happened, which made me even more suspicious either way. Now I felt like I was the detective and I was going crazy. I went over to the cheating husbands to ask a few questions. The wife was staying at her parents', so it was just the two of us. I asked him if he actually did it and he said no, he would never. Then I asked if my wife had been over recently. He said one day while you were at work his wife asked her to water a plant they had while they were both away and told her where the key was, so yes. I immediately raised an eyebrow. I asked if he still had the bra and he was getting nervous and told me not to get the wrong idea. I said don't worry. He still had the bra and I looked at it. It was my wife's, but one I knew she almost never wore because it was from a lingerie set I bought her one Christmas she said was uncomfortable. I told my neighbor I needed to talk to my wife and ran out, but I told him not to worry. I approached her with the bra and asked her what was going on. She played stupid but I told her to cut the BS. I asked if she had either cheated on me with him or planted it there, either way she was in trouble. She confessed to planting the bra and said it was to make me admit her hobby was valid or something. I flipped on her. I said this was worse than her cheating on me because instead of ruining just our marriage she ruined our neighbors and ours. I demanded she call the wife and admit to everything, even sending pictures of the board. I even showed the Reddit post which actually helped convince her my wife had planted it rather than cheated with her husband. Well, they made up, but now I have no idea what to do. I am barely speaking to my wife and it is only a matter of time before the entire neighborhood figures this out. Update 2. Sorry, I've been busy. Long story short, my wife is in a mental health facility. After what had happened previously, I did not speak to my wife for a while. I tried to stay working or out of the house as often as I could. Well, a few weeks passed and time made it seem like less and less of a big deal. Finally my wife offered to take me out to a very nice dinner to make things up to me. She told me everything was behind her and while I was avoiding her she had actually started online therapy to get help and realized now what she did was wrong. I really believed her and we had a great night. One thing led to another that night and yay lol. It took about 2 days after that for her to get a pregnancy test and she texted me the positive result. Yeah, I know some of you already think I'm an F/King moron, but it had been a rough year and this made me really happy. I started getting very excited. We started talking about turning my home office to a baby room, looking up ways to prepare, booking appointments, planning a shower, etc. A really fun but whirlwind week. Unfortunately, she told me the first ultrasound was at a time I had to be at work and she would have to go alone. Really bummed me out and I asked her to reschedule, but she said it was the only availability. Well, that next week she went and I waiting for an update or pictures or anything. Nothing. She came home and was super quiet and I flipped out and got super worried that the worst had happened. I told her I understood she was probably in a lot of pain about something, but she had to tell me. She finally admitted no, it wasn't a miscarriage. But she was actually pregnant for longer than she thought, longer than the last time we did it. She actually got pregnant during the time I was avoiding her. Obviously I was so mad and upset and I couldn't understand why she would do this to me, but then I realized all the signs were there for so long and all the comments telling me she was probably cheating was right. But I tried to keep a clear head for at least a second because I really love my wife and I couldn't believe it. I asked her who it could have been and she actually said she didn't know. She said she hadn't won it with anyone during the time I was avoiding her. She swore it and also didn't know what this meant. I thought about it and realized if she was really pregnant for that long, her tummy should be showing and it wasn't. I decided to call the place and ask them to confirm what they said. My wife told me it would be a waste of time and she promised she heard them clearly, so I didn't do it that night. But I couldn't sleep that night without hearing it from the doctors myself. I called the clinic she told me she went to the day before in the morning and asked them to confirm the results. They told me something worse than I expected. She had no visit, she was never there. I didn't understand that at all. Before I talked to my wife again, I did what I should have done in the first place and reverse image searched the pregnancy test image. Yeah, it was on Google from a random years old Facebook post. I was again really mad at my wife and couldn't believe she would put me through all this. I confronted her about the picture and that I called the place and there was no appointment. I told her she had a pattern of lying and this was probably the end of our relationship. But she responded in a way I didn't expect. She burst into tears and went manic, which I did expect, but then said that she really had cheated on me and really was pregnant and that I had made this up in my head because I couldn't face what she did to me. She said she felt like the devil and Hitler and started sobbing and literally screaming at the top of her lungs. She locked herself in the bathroom and told me she was going to kill herself over what she did to me. I couldn't get the door open and freaked out. I called the cops and they broke the door down. She was not hurt but she was really out of it. They took her to get a mental evaluation and she told them everything there. She even started mixing in stuff about the board and how she knew everyone around her was a cheater, so she had done the same because she was in an evil place. She promised them she was pregnant but she didn't know who the father was. They tested her while in custody and no pregnancy at all. They told me she was likely suffering from a form of schizophrenia and actually genuinely believed that she was saying, and likely always had to some level, but it seemed to be getting worse. They said she had a symptom called self-accusation and needed help. Well, I got her in a facility last week and she is safe. They are making a little progress. I do not think she thinks she is pregnant anymore. I have visited a few times but she is very withdrawn with me and says she feels too guilty to look me in the eye. I think there was definitely meddling at certain parts like planting evidence, but now I just feel terrible I did not get her the help she needed when all the real signs were there. I hope her medication starts to help and she can be normal again. And yeah, the neighborhood gossip is having a field day with all this. Anyway, thanks for listening. I hope this is my last update. Thanks for all the help. Edit, my wife has been to the clinic before and I am an authorized contact. I can ask about her appointments. Also, local area so I know the front desk lady. She was as confused as I was when she saw there were no appointments scheduled and no record of her going. Why don't all you losers shove a fork up your ass and twist it? Now on to second story. Discovered my girlfriend's secret obsession with male strip shows and her lies about them. Now I'm questioning our entire relationship. I, 28 male, and Jen, 26F, have been dating exclusively for 2 years and living together for 6 months. We live in the college town where we both earned our computer science degrees, but we didn't know each other in college. Jen is the classic cute nerd who loves playing video games and is a huge fan of Doctor Who. Jen has a good college friend, Amber, with whom she goes out with maybe once every 4 to 6 weeks. Usually, it's so, mething low-key like a movie or dinner and drinks. Many times it's during the week, not the weekend. I have never thought anything of it because I've never had a reason to. Plus, sometimes Jen comes home really horny and wants to have sex as soon as she stumbles through the door. But other times she texts me to say she's going to crash at Amber's place. A few nights ago, Jen and Amber had a girls' night. She told me they were going to see a late movie and maybe grab some drinks after. Jen came home around 11 p.m., tipsy but not drunk, and basically jumps me in bed. We went at it until she fell asleep around 1 a.m. When I went to turn her light off, I noticed a pop-up on her phone with a QR code ticket pass to something called Men in Motion. I googled it. It's a traveling show with male strippers that travels around the country and puts on a male strip shows. And yes, the ticket was for a show tonight. Jen and I don't have an open phone policy, but I knew her password and I was more than curious. I checked her Eventbrite app ticket history and it looks like she has gone to a lot of these shows. I also looked at her photos and found a folder with over 100 pics of her with male dancers wearing not a lot of clothing. I'm struggling with the idea that Jen enjoys watching hot naked men dance and has been hiding it from me. I feel inadequate and uneasy about the situation. Although there's no evidence she cheated, there have been 2 nights she didn't come home that matched the dates of the shows. Yeah, I have a good memory. It makes me wonder if something more is going on. I've always trusted Jen, and I don't want to accuse her of anything without evidence. However, this whole situation is making me uneasy. How do I bring this up to her without making her feel like I don't trust her? And how do I deal with the nagging feeling that even more may have happened? Wibta if I confronted her about this? Oop, yeah, I'm pretty sure she has straight up lied to me a few times. Update 1. The shock of knowing my nerdy Jen was regularly watching male strippers, along with low-key feelings of inadequacy, I'm okay looking but I'm not ripped, blinded me to the fact that the active deception on her part was the bigger issue. Anyhow, here is an update on what's happened. I knew I had to talk to Jen. At home Thursday evening I told her I saw the ticket on her phone the night of the show, and asked her why she lied to me that she was going to the movies. She was initially taken aback and defensive but eventually apologized for not being upfront. She said that she and Amber just considered it a fun and even silly girls' night activity. Jen admitted she kept it quiet from me because she wasn't sure how I would react and didn't want to make things awkward between us by even asking. It was just something fun and naughty. She admitted that this was not her first time attending a show like this, but she couldn't remember how many times in the past. Jen also said something I never thought of, that she felt safe going to these shows, as it was an all-women environment, compared to bars and clubs where guys get drunk and hit on women. She reassured me that these shows were just to have fun and not about any dissatisfaction with our relationship. She said at least 3 times that she finds me attractive and was very satisfied with our sex life. She even said if it would help me process things that she and I could go together to a club with female dancers. Neither of us have ever been to a strip club with female dancers but thought it would be similar, and I could see for myself that it was just naughty fun and we could experience it together. After a couple hours of talking she grabbed my hand and took me up to the bedroom to assure me that I am still the hottest man in her life. Next day I was satisfied with her explanation. Jen didn't tell me how many times she had gone to these shows, but I chalked it up to her being embarrassed at me finding out and not wanting to hurt me anymore. I also didn't ask about the pictures. I didn't want her to know that I had looked at her phone, and there really wasn't any smoking gun evidence of infidelity. But the next day something still just felt off. Maybe me just questioning myself and my naivety up until this point. So, I reached out to a mutual friend of ours, Kirsten. Kirsten was part of Jen and Amber's college friend group, and I knew Kirsten casually from a few classes we had taken together. Kirsten and I weren't close at all and I hadn't seen her since graduation, but we reconnected at her wedding a couple years ago. The wedding was just around the time Jen and I became exclusive. Jen and Amber were both bridesmaids. Jen took me as her +1. As far as I knew, Kirsten and Jen didn't have much interaction after the wedding, which I assumed was just normal for married people to lose contact with unmarried friends. I messaged Kirsten Saturday. I used the pretense that I was thinking of taking things to the next level with Jen, and that since she was the first person in the friend group that got married and that she knew Jen, that she could give me some advice. What she said next stunned me. She said that she didn't know that Jen and I were a couple, and that she hadn't spoken to Jen since the wedding. She also said we should meet up for coffee so she can fill me in on some things in person, but not to tell Jen we were meeting. Holy fuck. We had coffee Sunday. Wow. Just fucking wow. Here is what she told me. I have written this chronologically so it makes more sense. 1. According to Kirsten, Jen was a virgin until her 21st birthday. As a joke, Kirsten, Amber, and friends decided to hire a male stripper for Jen's birthday celebration. To everyone's shock, Jen really liked the stripper and she lost her virginity that night. 2. Jen got the stripper's phone number, and Kirsten said they met up with him a few times after the party for what Jen called a special private show. Jen was unabashedly proud of this. 3. Jen became more interested in dancers, and would do things like suggesting Magic Mike for movie night. Other times she would comment on guys walking around campus, making comments about abs and biceps and saying I bet he looks good in a thong. 4. Jen had a serious boyfriend after college and before we met that I didn't know about. According to Kirsten, their relationship ended when the boyfriend discovered Jen in bed with, a stripper. Jen had gone to a male review, hung out after the show, she managed to pick up one of the dancers and took him home. The BF ended up moving out of town for work, which is why I had never heard of him. The friend group knew about this mess and Kirsten figured Jen had learned her lesson. 6. At Kirsten's bachelorette party, where Jen and Amber were bridesmaids, Kirsten had explicitly told them no strippers. Despite this request, Jen and Amber arranged for 2 strippers to show up, and all 4 of them ended up having a foursome. Kirsten was understandably furious with them hijacking her bachelorette and blatantly disrespecting her, and ended the friendship with Jen and Amber, though she kept them in the wedding party because the wedding date was only a week away and she didn't want word of this to get out and overshadow the wedding. Looking back, I remember the vibe of the wedding felt off, and this was why. I could tell Kirsten was still rightfully very pissed about the whole situation, and said I deserved to know the truth. Over the course of an hour I went from stunned to furious. I'll spare you the ugly details of Sunday evening, but I broke it off and told Jen she has until the end of the week to move out. She was crying, screaming, begging, but at this point I had enough and told she could just fuck off and die. Among her excuses, there was nothing wrong with a woman liking hot men, and that it was all just a fantasy no different than guys liking porn. It got her horny and I got the benefit of it. I was being insecure, she really loved me and saw a future together, and this was something she could work through. Oh, she never slept with strippers after Kirsten's bachelorette, and that debacle was early in our relationship and shouldn't count, but who the fuck knows. Jen will be sleeping in the spare room for now, but I told her this is over. I will avoid her as much as I can until she moves out. I am not worried about her doing psycho shit. I think she knows I will go nuclear and tell her parents and family the whole story if she tries anything. Update 2. Some of you asked for an update. Jen finished moving out Saturday. No drama. I mostly avoided her. She made some attempts at reconciliation, but I think she knew it was hopeless. Some of you made helpful suggestions to protect myself, but mostly weren't needed. I wasn't worried about her trashing the place. She's not crazy, she just got caught. She also knew that I would go nuclear if she tried any stunts. In all years together she has never seen me this pissed off. Hell, I had never seen me this pissed off. I also wasn't worried about her trying to spin some story for sympathy. Our respective families live in different states, our friend circles, what's left of hers, don't overlap, we work for different companies. So there was no one for her to play the sympathy card on. Also I wasn't worried about baby trapping, as I would never stick my dick in that again. Also we are both well-paid IT professionals with plenty of disposable income and no desire to have kids. STD panel is clean. I did speak with Kirsten, former friend of Jen, to let her know what happened. One thing she said made me feel a bit better. She said that during and after college Jen was actually pretty selective in who she dated and was not into the casual hookup culture, and probably hadn't been with more than 5 guys total before me. With the obvious exception she had a hobby of fucking strippers. And yes, I know that Sue NDS fucked up writing it. But she probably wasn't running around with load of random hookups behind my back. So yes, I may have been naive, but not that naive. One of my friends said this whole thing reminded him of stories about men with loving wives and families but who have some kink that can only be satisfied by hiring street hookers. Losing her virginity to a stripper may have done something to Jen's psyche that could only satisfied with some jack dude with oiled muscles dancing in a thong. Not my problem anymore. I am doing as okay as can be in this situation. I'm not really depressed because I am still pissed off about the whole situation.